On my screen, I see the great Jim Langford, one of our PDA staff people who does just the most amazing work down in Florida, organizing the progressive wing of the Democratic Party and PDA and P40A in Florida. And if for folks who don't know, who attend this call regularly, we have an incredible background staff that works on this every week, and Jim is a real anchor of that, as is Susan Gilbert, and they deserve all the love and solidarity for what they do in pulling this together every week. And of course, today, we're coming to you on this PDA National Town Hall at what remains one of the most fraught and difficult phases of American history in my lifetime, this present moment, and a situation that's going on domestically and also to a degree internationally on account of the highly personalized and far right authoritarian and fascist approach to politics from our President Donald Trump and his administration. And uh, and of course, we'll be discussing that. And of course, we're discussing this on the weekend, which is a national holiday weekend, celebrating the most recent American to have national holidays in his honor, and somebody whose politics were diametrically opposed to Donald Trump's in really every way, shape, and form, and that's Martin Luther King Jr. And certainly what MLK brought into and foregrounded in the United States of America and our national politics is something we need now more than ever, very, very much so. I mean, the tremendous drive that he, uh, really motivated and inspired and led a movement that had a huge base of support across the country and, of course, anchored in the Southeast, to have the promise of America really be delivered for the people in terms of the realization of a democratic society. And as we have the foundations and uh, framework of our democratic society here really being torn up, um, I think there's no better person in our history, the entire history of the country, the entire history of the American project to foreground and think about, and then how we can take this moment we're at now, organize opposition along the principles that Dr. King foregrounded, of course, adjusted to the present, as is always necessary with something from history, though so much of it is a perfect match for this time period now, 60, 70 years after Dr. King was organizing, um, and, um, and to make of America the fulfillment of that promise, because there are many opportunities that we have, or that the people who have organized to have greater popular power and democracy and equitable economics and racial and social justice across the world, where achievements have been, the left has achieved their ends. And many of those instances have been cases where there's a whole crisis in the society. Oftentimes, they're in a response to right-wing efforts previously. We certainly have both of those conditions now, and you can see around the country people realizing that coming out of this, we need to consolidate and really tighten up the operation of American democracy, an economy that is more equitable for people. And if all of that, the fact that King stood for those things and advocated for them makes him a central figure for the moment we're in right now. The manner in which he called for it, I think, is even more resonant because, from his time to now, the manner in which the United States of America is just overwhelmingly packed with arms and guns that are privately owned. That there's this kind of right-wing militia movements that have not that large a percentage of the population supporting them, but in terms of the concentration of weaponry, that's probably a large concentration of such weaponry. The people who participate in those movements are disproportionately represented in law enforcement, and we really see how they're overwhelmingly disproportionately going to be represented in ICE. I think that's something that everybody's intuiting right now and recognizing is true. And so the nonviolent civil disobedience approach that King highlighted and that we highlighted here at PDA right off the bat after Trump was reelected is something that we have to really focus on as well. And we'll talk a little bit about that across the first hour. So that's my sort of editorial comments at the top of the show. We have a rather uniquely structured show this week, and it's on account of the fact that we have two featured guests, fantastic featured guests. But because of calendar, required just the necessity of their schedules, and both are running in Democratic primaries for the U.S. House of Representatives, and they're both endorsed by PDA, and they're both brilliant candidates. One is not for the general election of 2026, but rather a special election to replace or to fill the seat vacated by Mickey Sherrill, who was elected governor of New Jersey. So at the top of the hour, so 54 minutes from now, we're going to be joined by just an absolutely fantastic organizer and activist who's been, I was thinking about this in a way, a little bit, I hopefully am close to being as accomplished, and I'm not as accomplished as she is, but I play some of analogous roles, a little bit behind the scenes. So Anna Lilia Mejia, who is running in the 11th district in New Jersey, was the national political director of Bernie Sanders' campaign in 2020, and she has been the co-executive director of the Center for Popular Democracy, a very close partner of PDA's. And she is running to fill Cheryl's seat. There are, I would describe them as three relatively prominent, including a former congressperson, moderate centrist establishment Democrats. Really, that's sort of the term of art in New Jersey, an establishment Democrat running in the race. And Anna Lilia has sort of consolidated support in the progressive lane. And she has a real shot at winning this. And tomorrow she's going to have a huge event with Senator Bernie Sanders and some of his friends, as they have our strongest allies in Congress have endorsed Anna Lilia, as we have endorsed Anna Lilia. And it's going to be if progressives can win this seat, and given the name recognition of some of the people she's running against, in particular the former congressman from another district, Tom Malinowski, it's going to be a huge, huge definitional victory for progressives. And just like the primary with Afton Bain, I think this is something that's possible. And maybe the odds were a little better for Afton. I don't know. It really depends on the degree to which Malinowski is going to be able to carry over his name recognition from another district into the one that he's running in now. There's also a high profile county commissioner that's running. And New Jersey being New Jersey, believe it or not, the person who holds both the positions of lieutenant governor and secretary of state simultaneously, she's running. And then again, I'd say the fourth top tier candidate is Anna Lilia, who will be joining us at the top of the hour. Then after that, we're going to be joined by Nida Allam, who PA endorsed 2 cycles ago and almost won the Democratic primary in the part of North Carolina around in central North Carolina around Durham and Chapel Hill. And people might remember this. It was a close enough primary that I remember on an election night, primary night, we were all looking at the layout of the votes and where are the votes coming in. And she lost to a woman who went on to win what is a very gerrymandered district, but it's a packed district. The Republicans in North Carolina have conceded that they can't take that district, that region of North Carolina. It's so heavily Democratic that they just sort of try to get as many Democrats into this one district as possible. So whoever wins the primary is going to win. And she is running against a woman who's been in the House for 2 cycles now, and Representative Valerie Fouché, I think is her name. I know her name and I know her record and everything like that, but I sometimes hesitate on pronouncing her last name. And she was one of the largest recipients of APAC money in recent cycles. So, and APAC money played a big role in North Carolina primaries. The last time PDA really engaged in primaries, which was 2 cycles ago, and so this is a big issue. It's not just something that is tangential to the way politics plays out in North Carolina. And given the history of the last few years with Israel and Gaza and APEC, Nida Allam has stepped up again. She's a Dunham County Commissioner, I believe, herself, elected official, very prominent progressive in the state of North Carolina. And she'll be joining us all the way at the bottom of the second hour. And I hope people can hang out for that. Now, the reason we really want to get these 2 candidates on, and in a moment I'll call on Mike Fox for our PDA to-dos for this week, and then I'll be joined by Heine Jodette Barnes to talk about, again, the way that PDA is really going to focus on issues around the Middle East going forward in a big event we have on Wednesday night we want to let everybody know about. But yeah, it's uh, yeah, North Carolina is a very, very important state, and New Jersey is also a very important state as well for progressives because the lock that the establishment had on Democratic Party politics in New Jersey was broken in the last cycle, creating an opening for progressives that hasn't really been seen in the state really in my entire lifetime. Maybe we'll get into those details with Anna Lilia. But the reason we're foregrounding these two races is because, well, obviously the special election is happening right away. So on, of all days, Thursday, I believe, February 5th is the primary date for the special election in New Jersey 11th. So that's coming up and it's before any other primaries in the country. And again, if Anna Lilia can win the seat, it's going to be a major, major moment for progressives and really set the table for the primary season to follow. Much as we did with Alito winning and Afton doing so incredible and winning her primary in Tennessee. And then North Carolina is there are five states that are in front of all the other states in having March primaries, and North Carolina is one of those states, as is Illinois. And in Illinois and North Carolina, PDA is going to play, the role we do in the states where we have candidates that we back, and we also have some good infrastructure in both states. And so Nida is one of the races that we're endorsing in North Carolina, and we'll talk a little bit about North Carolina before we bring Nida on. And so yeah, this is on March 4th, I believe, is the primary date in North Carolina. And after those five states, I believe three of which are in the even deeper South, and then Illinois is on March 4th, and then there are no primaries until May other than those five states. So this is why the concentration you'll hear about our Illinois endorsed candidates, our North Carolina endorsed candidate with Nida. And by the way, of course, we're also involved with our longtime ally Rodney Sadler's race, but that's a local race, so it's Progressives for Democracy in America is addressing that, not Progressive Democrats of America, which is the call we're on now, which is, of course, focuses on national electoral politics. But all that's coming up. That's the calendar. And I believe that Donna Smith, who usually joins us at this time, is unable to join us this week. And Mike Fox is going to join us now and tell us our PDAs to do for this week, which will set the table for my introduction of Hanya Jodat Barnes as we're going to talk about PDA Greater Middle East Alliances and the event we have on Wednesday night. Mike Fox, what are our other PDA to-dos for this week?
Thank you, Alan. Can you hear me?
Yes.
And I want to apologize. Actually, it's a combination. Apologize to everyone. I'm having some camera challenges here today. However, I'm showing solidarity with all of our brothers and sisters who are not co-hosts of the show today. The reason why cameras are not enabled, gang, isn't because we don't want to see your beautiful faces. It's because we get Zoom bombed on our very open and welcoming call here. And the Zoom bombers just absolutely love to take advantage of open video. So solidarity, all. We love you. And to-dos number one, revel in the fact that you're surrounded by people who get it here. Every Sunday, 4 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Pacific, we are here building community, making each other hopefully feel better by the end of the call. And I know, bottom line, y'all make me feel better. It's literally healthcare for me. So thank you for being here. To do number two, take notes, because we've got a lot of not only just good information that you want to share, but specific to-dos to make happen, okay? So make sure you've got all the to-dos before you leave this call, all right? The short answer on that is I'll be tossing into the chat literally the link to our to-dos weekly to-dos list. It's an updated document on a regular basis. It's dynamic, so you'll want to bookmark it, and that way you'll have the 10 to-dos at any given time. The short answer for this overview on to-dos is time and treasure. From a time standpoint, we're looking at basically two. Number one, phone bank, phone bank, phone bank, phone bank. We got to be in the game for our endorsed candidates here over this push. So I got a boatload of phone bankers on this call right now. If you are a phone banker, type in the chat that you are one. Quickly tell people why you are and include the link, pdamerica.org/volunteer. Our goal is 20 new phone bankers from this call. Just give us an hour and we'll get cooking. The other to do, I'll be tossing into the chat the link to the walkouts that are taking place on Tuesday all across the country. If you care to participate, bang, hit that link, and you'll be You'll be able to check out what's going on in your area. From a treasure standpoint, our goal today is solidarity, solidarity, solidarity. Any amount that you can give, greatly appreciated and very much needed at this point. But I would underline our goal for sustaining donations. Sustaining donations, $2, $5, $10, whatever you can do, is just really helps us budget. Right? If we know what we've got going every month, it's a heck of a lot easier. And it likewise prevents us from having to constantly be asking for money, 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 money. If you can toss in $5, $10 as a sustainer, greatly appreciated. And our goal for this call, 20 as well. I'll be back at the top of the hour to determine where we're at on our goals. And back to you, Alan.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you so much, Mike. And of course, we're going to talk right now with Hanya Jodette Barnes about a big event coming up on Wednesday. I do want to remind people that those campaign calls on Thursday are really worth attending as we go into this year. The Democratic primaries are going to be a space where there's going to be contestation between the progressive wing of the party, which of course we support and represent, and the moderate corporate establishment wing of the Democratic Party that has been losing elections to Donald Trump for a while now, and really endangers the world by his incapacity to really put forward any kind of vision that's compelling for the American people. And I want to say that after we speak with Hanya, and I should have said this at the top of the hour, and I apologize. For the balance of this hour, we are going to have a dialogue with you, and this will be the phase of the call where we'll take a stack and we'll hear from folks. And I want to be cautious about declaring that PDA or I have the strategy that needs to be applied to defeat fascism in America and, promote a more equitable and just economy and a strong democracy. But we are putting out ideas that are trying to add up to a strategy. And I did give a paper in Los Angeles that I will be publishing. And big shout out to the folks at PDA Massachusetts and Russell Friedman. I'll be working with Russell on the development of very short pamphlets that relate to both the really signature issues that we have to highlight that progressives are they're very popular with the general population. They're very progressive. They're in the Rooseveltian, progressive Keynesian social democratic tradition. They fit up with the way our economy is structured, but also some ideas about how we approach the landscape of American society to share these ideas with people. And definitely there is one thing that even since I gave that paper in Los Angeles that I really believe should be folded in as a central component of this kind of strategy or the formation of a strategy that of course we have to share with our allies on the progressive left. But I think all of the things that we're putting forward are popular with those groups of people and organizations. And so I'll be presenting that just very briefly after the dialogue with Hanya, and then we'll take a dialogue with you, the attendees of our great PD Day town halls. Well, with that, and before we get to strategy and defeating fascism and just economy and democracy and overcoming the legacies of hate and racism at the core of the American project, and really building the America as great as its promise, so to speak, as Barbara Jordan's line. We're going to talk with Hanya Jodette Barnes about the project that we are really launching as one of our highest profile projects at PDA, which is the well, not just establishing, but really kicking into gear and having it anchor for the progressive movement, the relationship of the United States, the U.S. foreign policy to the Middle East, as well as the experience. And of course, there's tons of Islamophobia and racism in this regard, and it's obviously over the top right now with everything that ICE is doing around the experience of people from the Middle Eastern diaspora within the domestic United States. And we have a really launching event on this Wednesday. And here to tell us about it is the coordinator of PEA Greater Middle East Alliances, one of my heroes, Hanya Jodat.
What?
Welcome. Oh, yeah, you're
Don't do this
incredible.
to me. Are you kidding me?
Oh, yeah.
Gosh. Well, it's an amazing opportunity and a great feeling to be in community with you, Alan Minsky, who serves as my mentor in this space of anti-war organizing and to 310 people who are on this call. You could be anywhere, but you chose to be here on a Sunday. And it just brings me so much joy that every single week that I join you all is the number grows, it doesn't decline. So that just goes to show you how incredible progressive Democrats of America has been in engaging in this progressive space and giving the opportunity for folks to build their own chapters and has provided that support for chapter leaders to be able to grow their chapters in different parts of the country. Um, Want to take a pause for a second and talk about, Alan, if I may, about how important some of these candidate calls are that Mike Fox has been putting together. And you just mentioned everything we have, everything is on the line at this moment, right? And everything we have rides on whether or not we're able to put the right people in 2026 in Congress and reclaim our power back as Democrats. So before I even joined this call, I just shared with Mike Fox, I said, look, I'm actually making phone calls right now, doing some follow-up call time for Hartzell Gray, who's running in Missouri's 4th Congressional District, who's one of the most gerrymandered targeted districts that Trump has sought to destroy. But the fight goes on, right? And so if we don't strategize as progressives early on and don't allow for campaigns to have the breathing room to be able to mobilize on the ground, I think we have a very hard road ahead of us, but we have a very great opportunity to support progressives in spaces, coming from, Zohran's campaign where we saw so much success, so much momentum, so much happiness from the people of New York and the entire country. I think if we continue on that momentum, we're going to be able to flip many of these districts from red to blue and get rid of some of the Democrats that have just been sitting there collecting money from corporations and APAC and lobbying groups that have really put a chokehold on our politicians in Congress and in the Senate. So I say this to say this. Greater Middle East Alliances chapter is so relevant to this moment. And, as an Iranian American, I don't want to get emotional, but I want to send,
Mm,
I hold my people today in this moment very close in my heart.
right.
People who have been for 47 years under the pressure of a totalitarian regime that has cut them at their knees and weaken our civic society. And I have to recognize also the empire's impact in how things have unfolded.
Right.
Decades of unilateral sanctions to weaken the economy and embolden those in power, not allowing the bazaar and our labor movement in Iran to flourish, right? Cutting medicine at a time during COVID where people were dying from the pandemic and they did not have supplies to vaccinate patients. I hold my people very dear to my heart. And this call especially is very important because, and just to kind of give you a background of what we're going to be talking about, we are hosting a fundraising call for the Progressive Democrats of America Middle East Alliances. And our guest speakers will speak to the influence of U.S. foreign policy in that region, how overthrowing regimes that under the disguise and name of democracy has destabilized that entire region, and what we can as progressives do to combat the interest powers who are wanting to do the same thing to Iran right now. One thing to be very clear about what's happening in my country, and I'll finish with this. We'll go back to the call and our guest speakers, is that the organic movement in Iran must be supported. The organic
Mm,
movement from the people of Iran must be supported. Two things can be true at the same time.
sure.
There has been a great deal of interference from Israel, from the United States of America, and those allies in
Mhm,
destabilizing the economy of the country.
mhm,
At the same token, there has been a natural movement that has formed by our students, by the labor, by teachers, by the working class Iranians who say we are tired and exhausted of the oppression and the way that life has served us in our country, of decades and centuries of love, poetry, science. Let's not forget about that, right?
mhm,
And I think what we need to do is, as progressives, come together. And I wish Donna was here because I think she would very much enjoy this conversation. In
mm,
my heart, I feel her right now.
mm,
That we have to, as progressives, call out two things.
Hmm.
the totalitarian regime of Iran, and how much they've impacted the daily lives of our Iranian communities
Hmm.
in Iran, and the US and the empire's influence in weakening our economy to a point that people cannot afford eggs. People cannot afford to put food on their tables.
Hmm.
So once we start addressing those, as two separate things and come together, right? I think it's going to be very important. It's going to be a very productive conversation, and hopefully we'll see some sort of a solution to and an end to all of this. With that said, Alan, before I take too much time, I do want to let everyone know that on Wednesday, the 21st, we're going to be joined by Dr. Aisha Joman, who's one of the board members of Greater Middle East Alliances, and she is the executive director of Yemen Relief Foundation, one of the few organizations in Yemen right now providing food and resources to Yemenis who have, and Yemen for the longest time was one of the largest humanitarian crises, right? She's going to talk about that. She's going to talk about, just the U.S. influence and what's happening right now in Yemen, as well as a scholar of Venezuela politics and global power, Professor Steve Elner, who was with us last week. I managed to invite him actually on this call, and we
Hmm.
sent a couple of emails back and forth. He shared a couple of his theses papers with me, which I'm studying before this call. And he's going to be talking about how Venezuela and Iran are related to each other and this uprising that's happening in Iran. How the U.S. imperialism has impacted both countries at the same time and how they're interlinked and married to one another. And we're
Hmm.
also going to have one of my dearest comrades and fellow Afghan refugee, Arash Azizada, who co-founded an organization called Afghans for the Better Tomorrow. He's one of
Hmm.
the co-directors, and I just cannot wait to hear from him because if anybody can talk about the U.S. Destabilizing nations, under the name of democracy is our Afghan community and Iraqi community and folks from Libya. So let's highlight them and give them a voice to speak. And obviously, this is going to be hosted and co-hosted by myself and Alan Miskey, my dearest friend, who has just been the most incredible part of my organizing life. Alan, I love you dearly. Cannot.
Oh, thank you. Love you too. And of course, one of the experiences I've had since I've been executive director, two of the closest allies I made initially within Congress were the two. Keith Ellison was no longer in Congress when I arrived, and so the two Muslim members were. Actually, there are a few. Carson is also Muslim from Indiana, but recent immigrant families to America with Rashida Tlaib in Michigan and Ilhan Omar, who both offices I worked very closely with on a number of initiatives, and still do. And with Omar, if people don't remember, PDA with two other organizations spearheaded the introduction of the first universal student debt cancellation bill, which was from Ilhan Omar. And without the introduction of that bill, it's unlikely that we built up momentum for the cause. And Bernie Sanders did not actually endorse universal student debt cancellation when he ran in 2016. People may not remember that, but he did very much so in 2020. In fact, elevated it more than he had pre-college, which he supported in both campaigns and also introduces the bill in the Senate. And so we work very, very closely with Representative Omar. And, obviously with what's happening, if just an aside here, of course, with I mean, one reason we're not going to ask Ilhan to speak on Wednesday is because obviously with what's going on right now in Minnesota, if people don't remember, the reason Minneapolis is being targeted is because of the absolute just virulent racist hatred of Donald Trump and Stephen Miller for the Somali community in Minnesota. So um, but again, working with Rashida too, and it became very apparent to me with working with them, actually doing some fundraisers with them, one of which had to be canceled in Southern California because of death threats with Ilhan Omar. That was a fundraiser for PDA that had to be canceled. And then, as you can see, we're very close to both offices. And of course, people out in Southern California know I've done events with Rashida and was actually supposed to do an event with her in Arizona last year, and it got canceled because America is, all these ridiculous attitudes and hatred towards the Palestinian people among establishment politicians. But what became very clear to me is that the only group of people who consistently present what I think that everybody's mind needs to be a reconfigured relationship of the United States to the greater Middle East, because U.S. policy towards the greater Middle East has been an absolute catastrophe, and primarily for the people of the Middle East. And yeah, it has also been, for the USA as well. But let's not lose sight of who the primary victims are here. And the only political formation And so, the fundraisers for Ilhan and Rashida, they were getting a lot of support from people who weren't traditionally even like necessarily supporters of the progressive left in America. And I think it's very much overdue that we make clear that we are the political formation. This is one of the things we do, and we're the only formation that does it. And then so we can have a space where the dialogue can occur with people who recognize this as a priority and also need to develop a dialogue and relationship with the only political formation that's going to support the same policy in the Middle East
That's
right
right.
now.
That's
And
right.
sadly, look, the moderate Democrats are so far from that right now, and we know why because we know where their funding comes from. And all of this has to be highlighted. So this is a very, very, very important um, chapter that we're creating. It's a unique national chapter, PDA Greater Middle East Alliances. And I lived in Rome, Italy in 1979 when 78, 79 when Shah was overthrown. And and then, of course, already by that time, the situation in Israel, Palestine, this has dominated geopolitics my entire life.
Mm.
And I don't think it takes, a theoretical physicist or a brain surgeon to figure out that U.S. foreign policy has to change towards the Middle East. That we've primarily been the lead negative actor internationally as the dominant nation. And we need a force to change the policy and also to welcome people in from the communities around the world. There's brilliant and beautiful immigrant communities, of course, now under siege across the nation. Again, Islamophobia and just the hatred of the peoples of the Middle East, with one or two exceptions, and the sort of general American the evolution of American racism, as it were, is so profound and so pronounced. And this all is just, we need to stand up, we need to organize against it, and this is a great opportunity to do it. So I hope everybody who's on the call can attend on Wednesday and also let everyone they know to attend as well.
And I'll say something and I'll finish with this, Alan. I think, oftentimes when these uprisings happen naturally in Iran, whether it's Women Life Freedom uprising or whether it's this now, the Republican Party mostly has a way of hijacking the movement
Mm.
for the sake of promoting peace in that region and in support of the people of Iran. But in actuality, they're actually jeopardizing it, right? When we tie, say, for example, a country or a regime like Netanyahu's regime, who's committed a genocide for the past few years, now you're tying that to someone who wants to free Iran all of a sudden. And when you have Pompeo irresponsibly talking about how we have Mossad agents who, by the way, I do want to just confirm here that the people who have been shot, many of them, news is coming out that there's been snipers from the rooftop and some people in, outfits, black outfits with masks on, not identifying themselves as regime or IRGC. They are, in fact, you know, we don't know who they are, but they're taking machine guns that and
Right.
they're killing people in Iran. So, these movements get hijacked and they become they're not legitimate anymore for the progressive movement, right? Because the progressive movement doesn't necessarily believe a country that committed genocide for the past 3 years is going to really care about Iran and the Iranian people.
Mhm.
That is a
Right.
democracy not welcoming, right?
Right. Right.
People
Right.
of Mhm. And the people of Iran have gotten to that point where, in the country that, yes, some may be saying, hey, we would love to, have the US intervene. But at the same time, what does that intervention look like? Right.
Mhm.
So, and unfortunately, I am at a point where, sometimes when I talk to my mom, I'm like, Mom, I don't know what the solution is because I'm not living in Iran right now. But the solution and the change has to come from the country of Iran with no interference from anybody. Iran deserves a democracy and a democratic Iran that is stable, like what we saw with Mossadegh in 1953, is something that the US does not want.
Right, right, and of course, what I would say there is just, and I think this is true for how the chapter, of course, will operate. Everything you said about self-determination of the Iranian people is correct. However, of course, everything you also said before that about, I mean, if people haven't read the news of what happened in these demonstrations got larger and larger. They were largely driven by an economic crisis. In fact, they were launched in the Tehran Bazaar, which is like a legendary open market in Tehran,
That's right.
because the level of inflation, it's like a Weimar Republic type hyperinflation that's occurred. And I think the Iranian currency used to be in the dozens to $1. Then it became in the hundreds to $1. Now it's 1.4 million to $1 or something like that.
It's
Um,
insane.
and by the way, I grew up, as I said, I was in Italy, and if people might remember the lira, and it was like the equivalent of $5 was was cinque mille. It was a $5,000. That's the legacy of once upon a time this kind of inflation hitting Italy, and it was just then it was stabilized. So you can have how many zeros you want behind a currency, but this was what it once was, and now what is, you can see what's happened. It is so unbelievably destabilizing. And this now spread. A lot of the large demonstrations in recent years were very concentrated in Tehran, and
Mm,
many people who were saying, well, that they don't think this is quite the revolutionary movement would point to the fact that it was largely more educated Turanian population that was involved in, not around in other cities. This was in many other cities.
mhm.
And so it's become very difficult for journalists to get a sense of what transpired. But what Hanya described about opening fire on demonstrators was happening in these cities and towns across the country. It's horrible. It happened at a unified point in relationship to the demonstrations, and then they shut down the internet across the whole country.
That's right. So
And
there's no
so,
way. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, but I think the one thing what we will do, and of course we know this, is the United States is not just another country in its relationship to Iran. It's the central. It remains, even with Donald Trump sort of just ripping everything up, that it remains the most influential country within the global system of countries, and obviously with a long history of impacting Iran however it can negatively, obviously for the past most since this regime's been in place. And so we have a role to play there too, and also to put out and project out across the world our feelings of what we want to have happen in terms of an open and free society in Iran, and let people know that our hearts are with them. And that's important because the United States can get cast as like just this singular entity of being opposed to the people of Iran. And we, of course, can have a powerful role in projecting otherwise. So everybody, we should move on. But Wednesday, this is going to be great, and really, really great, and very, very important for PDA. And again, the event is Wednesday at 8 p.m. You'll be getting emails about it. You can sign up through the email that you'll get, just a registration link for a Zoom. And yeah, this is going to be great, Hanya.
well, can't I wish we had some amazing news to share on the call, but we do have to break down these policies and we do have to touch upon the root issue and the issues that cause these uprisings. So there's going to be a very beautiful conversation and a dialogue between like-minded people. So I look forward to seeing all of you. And obviously, just like any chapter of PDA and just like any organization, we do need the funding to be able to expand this chapter in terms of the work that we need to do. So we're really counting on our friends, allies, and comrades from, the AAPI community, from the greater Middle East countries, and also our progressive allies who are on this call to help us, get there and expand this chapter. And
Yeah.
again, to Jim, to Alan, to Mike, to the other Mike, to the third Mike Fox, to Jim Langford, to Donna. I love you all. And thank you for all of the good work that you do in this world to keep us
Um,
together.
Thank you so much. And it's an honor to work with you. And again, the call is Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. And as Hanya noted, our naming device at PDA is if you're a male on staff, it's obligatory. I'm going to be changing my name to Mike soon. And so I'll be Alan Mike, but everybody has to be Mike on PDA staff. It does get a little confusing. Jim Langford will be talking about that too for you. No, we have a lot of mics here. That's great. So thank you. So everybody, that's going on. Now we're only 20 minutes away from being joined by Analilia Mejia, the candidate in New Jersey 11th. I noticed that somebody did join from Nida Allam's campaign. Maybe Mike, if you can find that, there is somebody who is here as a participant who has like Nida campaign. I think their first name is unfortunately the name that it's listed under.
Alan, his name
Mhm.
is Jason.
Jason, if
It's
maybe
listed
if you,
under Jason Team Nita.
yeah, if maybe Mike and Jim, if you can communicate with them behind the scenes to see how it's looking. I know that Nita had a
Yep,
very busy
I
year.
think we're still looking at 5:30. Hey, Jason, good to see you
Great.
from PDA Nation. Can't wait to talk here in a little bit.
Yep, that's great. Thank you so much. I just had noticed that. Thank you. So look, again, I wanted to talk again about this idea of how we obviously defeat the fascists and bring about an even better, new and improved, but truly new and improved democracy in America. And obviously, a central talking point for a new and improved democracy would, of course, be the removal of the influence, severe limiting and hopefully removal of the influence of money in politics, which is completely corrupting our politics here in the United States. And that can happen in the wake of defeating the fascists. So how do we get there? And one of the questions, of course, is, certainly we in the progressive movement feel right now that we are a majoritarian movement, that certainly in terms of economic policy, but also our sense of how America should operate in terms of being an open society, a free society, not a fascist society, our opposition to the Trumpian fascism, that those and that there should be a stronger democratic society, not a non-democratic society, not a totalitarian fascist society with unaccountable law enforcement. So we definitely feel that those are majoritarian figures, and we also feel like we advocate for those effectively, in contrast to our partners inside the Democratic Party. They are our partners because we're inside the Democratic Party, from the moderate corporate establishment wing of the parties, which we see from public opinion polls have the public is almost done with that formation, and yet it continues to dominate the party because of the power of money. And let's take comments. We're going to do this right up until the top of the hour from people, so people can raise their hands. But here's the central point I want to highlight right now. When I put forward, and again, this sort of evolving notion of a strategy, and central to the strategy is the idea that there's a tremendous dissatisfaction with the American social political contract as it is now, a quarter of the way through the 21st century. And that the America I grew up with all the problems it had, that simply was not the case. If you look at the 200th anniversary of the United States, and this is coming off the Vietnam War and Watergate, the general sense was, and if you look at actually 1976 specifically, people can remember Jimmy Carter was elected. There was a lot of turmoil in the society in the 1970s, there's no doubt. But the economic stagnation that hit the second half of the Carter administration hadn't happened yet. There was, the economy was seen to be not as strong as it had been in previous decades. But a lot of people thought with the Vietnam War over, even though there was incredible trauma in the wake of that, and even with all the other problems going on, that America, with that now in the rearview mirror, is not an active, ongoing trauma, and without the treasure all going to the war, and with Watergate passing, which was of course seen as it resolved as a confirmation of the a checks and balances system within our constitutional republic, that again people could look around and see a society that within 3 decades had become massively wealthy, on a level that was unlike anything that had happened, especially with the distribution of the wealth anytime previously in American history, or as Richard Nixon once said to Nikita Khrushchev, it's here in the United States, not in Soviet communism, where you have the most prosperous and largest middle class in human history. And it was only larger and even more prosperous in terms of accumulative household wealth in 1976 than it was before. The confidence about the country, the level of kind of general popular enthusiasm for the American project. Again, remember, Watergate had happened, Nixon had been vanquished, and that had produced, again, even among liberals, at least, if not radicals, a sense of confidence in the country. And that's not the case at all now. In fact, it almost couldn't be more turned inside out. The general sense that the country is going in the wrong direction, that has not reversed in public opinion polls since the 07-08 economic crisis. I don't think that was very high before then because that was the era of George Bush and Dick Cheney, but people may not recall that while the Iraq War and then Katrina and other things had led Bush to become an incredibly unpopular president, with the sense the country was going in the wrong direction politically. Economically, that wasn't so much the case, but it was all house of cards, right? That was the home ownership era. Um, and it actually was the period where, because people were able to get homes through really ridiculous loans, they only were able to get them because of the idea that their housing valuation was going to continue to always go up and up and up. And it created this house of cards that collapsed, and the whole global economy collapsed with it. And ever since that time, the American public's been incredibly dissatisfied with the American economy. So here's the big talking point, which is that the left can recognize this, and the general public recognizes this. But in the national discourse about the state of the economy, it remains dominated by people who do things like look at the stock market. And I think whenever we encounter this, and I said this a little bit in my talk in Los Angeles, but it needs to be even more forthright. Wherever we encounter somebody saying, no, American economy is the envy of the world. And you hear Biden was saying this at the end of his administration, that it had rebounded more quickly than any other economy. So there are these kind of there's a kind of still dominant voice within the American media that presents this idea. We have to always meet that argument with what is also unequivocally true. Yes, the stock market may be high, and yes, the economy is working for the 1%, arguably the 5%, and in a better month for economic numbers, maybe 10% of the population. It simply is not working for 90% of the population. And then that ties to the second argument that has to be made, which is that in a democratic society, that's not going to work. So if you want a democratic society, you have to have the economic concerns for the majority of the population addressed. And by the way, and when we have Ana Lilia Mejia on, her campaign platform focuses on what she says an economy for everyone. And she articulates it really brilliantly. So I'll be asking her about that. And it's a fantastic framing for just like the affordability was for Zohran Mamdani. But as we promote Ana Lilia's campaign, an economy for everyone. But again, you will hear over and over in the business press that America's economy is working, and that what we're trying to do as progressives, Medicare for all, free childcare, affordable colleges, free colleges, no student debt load for people, and then affordable housing through by any means necessary, building new houses, right? Which is a tricky thing for Americans to contend with because there you get to a larger percent of the population, homeowners, who maybe do not want to see that happen because they fear the decline in the valuation of their homes, which could happen because of more housing stock would make housings more available. Probably won't happen in the big population centers. It will only sort of temper the market to a degree because those are very desirable places to live because there's employment in the most dynamic metropolitan areas. But nonetheless, people have to understand that the overall, if you're in the upper middle class or middle class and you are a homeowner and that's your primary asset, let's say it declines by 10 or 15% in its market value, you're actually going to benefit more than 10 or 15% by Medicare for all, by the vibrant economy that occurs when the working class can actually live affordably. And that's the main salient point about housing, that the better economy for the majority of the population will create an economic boom, and you'll be better off even if your housing valuation goes down. We have to make these arguments. America is going to, if we don't make these arguments, and this is, of course, the kicker, what I said in LA, and if the Democratic Party doesn't really center these arguments, we're going to lose to the fascists. We cannot be a political formation that doesn't change an economic social contract that is unsatisfactory to the majority of the population. So let's see who's on stack, folks. And Carly is first. And we have about 12 minutes, 13 minutes to the top of the hour. So, Carly, what are your thoughts?
Okay. This is gonna sound irrelevant, but um I know that the Democratic Party, at least in recent years, has sort of been getting overwhelming support from women versus the working class white man. And my dad said that that was part of the reason that Kamala Harris lost in 2024. And then anyone in New Hampshire, there was this leaked text chat between John Kuiper and Heath Howard, the latter of whom I'm actually good friends with, that said something similar. So I gave him a phone call and basically heard the truth from the horse's mouth. And does anyone else think that maybe my dad and Heath Howard are right? That maybe we got to find a way to strike the balance between progressive women in leadership while making sure the working class white guy is not alienated, because we can't have that happening again, because we're going to lose again if we do that. That's
Well,
what I'm just worried about.
well, certainly in terms of the working class white guy, I mean, I think what's so much of the conversation in the national political dialogue to create these sort of oppositional groups. And I'm not saying that you're doing this in a bad way, Carly. It's important to bring this up because that's the way the landscape has operated. But really, if we just present opportunities for groups within the population, when you look at the statistics, you can make generalizations which are accurate, and it's now very well documented that there's a sense, especially among white working class men, that their social status has declined. And I think to toss away the relativity argument, relative to women, relative to other communities, I think it's true that there's probably been a lot of economic struggle in a lot of spaces where there weren't. And so we have to talk about improving those things. And if those are improved, then if it turns out that somehow a comparative politics of resentment remain, I can't believe that they will. I think if we actually, for working class people, really provide more opportunity and focus upon the welfare of the communities, will be and we're a political formation that is delivering the policies that achieve that. I think will be rewarded among working class people, including working class white men. By the way, Judith Butler, who how's this for a shift? I'm not going to mention Judith Butler. People know who Judith Butler is. She's considered one of the probably the leading philosophical voice in the world around gender theory. And she did a number of interviews yesterday, and she was asked about, the plight of white men, and also was asked in an interview that I saw about why is it that all across the democracies, the prominent, so-called Western democracies in the world, you have this gender divide as to why women vote more for the social democratic policies and men less so. And she gave a very, don't be intimidated away from when you see like a person like Judith Butler is giving an interview. Obviously she's a very famous philosopher at UC Berkeley on gender theory, but she gives very, very common sense and very strong answers, and her answers were very solid and sane and pragmatic. And she answers that question, Carly. So check it out. I think it was in her interview with Politics Joe, which is a good progressive British platform with Judith Butler, and she talks about the gender, very very reasonable common sense answer, nothing hard to comprehend. I know her theoretical writing can be a little Derridian and tough to read. Moji Aga, you're up next. Please unmute.
Hi, thank you. I am from Iran. I have some news from inside Iran. I am the founder of the peace-seeking Iranian veterans, and they are the people, at least in many neighborhoods in Tehran, are in shock, are bewildered as a result of the horrible, situation. And that I am so glad I'll be there on Wednesday. I am so glad that Haniye talked about both. We need to stand up, in the words of Dr. Mohammad Mossadegh, the Gandhi of Iran, who was overthrown in 1953 by the CIA and MI6. He said we need to stand up to both internal despotism and external colonialism. And he said that they are two sides of the same coin. So it's important to understand that they need one another as enemy. That interrelationship as enemy of internal despotism and external colonialism is the kind of intersectional analysis that needs to be deeply understood. I wish I had more time. Thank you. I'm heartbroken, by the way.
You're muted, Alan.
Alan, you're muted.
Yeah, very glad to have had Hanya on. Thank you for your comments, sir. Because obviously there's these things that happen in the world, and the Iranian situation, because of the crisis domestically in the United States, on the heels of Venezuela, on the heels of everything about Trump, did not get the level at which this was a world historical atrocity of a government opening fire on demonstrators wasn't focused upon. It's very good that we were able to highlight that today, and thank you for your comments. I think they're spot on. Carly, just I did see wrote in the chat the question about how can you win an election without alienating the white working class voters. Again, my proposal, and I certainly don't have all the answers, but I hope to make a contribution to the conversation, is to again focus on the economic distress felt by again that block of voters. And I think if that is if it's focused upon it and actual things are delivered, and Trump focused on it, he didn't deliver anything. And that's of course the thing we have to distinguish too. Trump is doing nothing for people who want to have jobs that are going to compensate them at a level that's adequate to live in our society comfortably. We're all about that, and if we can do that and show how we can get there, which we can, I think that's how we win those elections. Peter Hall, then Mark Harrison. Peter, please unmute.
Yes, I want to talk about one of the things we need to focus as Democrats is what of course, the very wealthy class wants to do is divide the working class on cultural lines. We have to focus on the economy, the basic needs of people, and not get sucked into the culture war, which is what the conservatives want, because they want to focus on culture. That's where they know they can win. They've been doing it for years, and that's how they divide the working class. So we need to basically focus on the basic needs, healthcare, say the housing, work, and something else we need to do. There is housing. There's plenty of housing in America. The problem is we've abandoned whole communities because of economics. We need to get economic vitality back in some of these communities have been abandoned. It's in rural America, it's places in the Midwest. Let's get people to move to the places where we have housing and get economic development where we have housing in places that have been abandoned. So let's focus on expanding economic activity across the country and not just focus on a few handful of urban areas, urban centers. Everybody has to move there in order to get any kind of economic vitality and economic progress for themselves. So we have to spread this economic vitality across the country, revitalize these communities that essentially have been abandoned, where we have housing, we have affordable housing, we just don't have any economic opportunity. Let's focus on spreading economic opportunity, and economic opportunity is what we want to focus on as Democrats.
Thank you. And I'll say, too, this is not just a matter of rural and small town America across the geographic expanse. Now, that's true in town after town after town, what Peter said. It's also true of many of the large cities, especially east of the Rockies. You have large areas that are economic deserts in the center of metropolitan areas, and that housing stock, some of which is spectacular in places because it's back in an era where things were built with great craftsmanship and brick buildings and so on, and these are abandoned, and neighborhoods are abandoned, and they're just there, infrastructurally even available through roads and everything, where these can be revitalized into beautiful communities. So spot on, Peter. Thank you so much, Mark Harrison. We'll have Mark, and then we'll check on whether we see Annalila Mejia on the horizon, and in fact. Maybe someone would want to reach out to Catherine Hunt to see if she can help wrangle Annalila too, if that's a necessity. Go ahead, Mark.
Hey, hi everyone. Happy
Hey,
New
Mark.
Year. I just wanted to raise just several points real quick.
Mhm.
One is is 2026 the 250th anniversary of the Constitution?
No.
And there's a guy doing a thing called Refresh the Constitution that I
Mhm.
sent you information about. I would like for Mike and the guy who's doing this initiative, Mike Hirsch, to have a conversation to see if this is something that PDA should work together with him on. Lastly, this week, or was it last week, the senator from did a thing on the economy, and Democrats need to take a strong stand on the economy. From Massachusetts, I'm thinking of just losing her name very quickly.
Oh, Warren, yes,
Warren,
that was good, I thought. Yeah.
I thought it was very good.
Mhm.
And thinking about her framing, I thought that we also need to do some framing on what is a working class foreign policy. I'll just throw that out as a
Oh, I
suggestion,
love it.
as a way to do our own framing. So I'll leave that because I'm out of order.
Actually, no, you're totally in order. In fact, next week, folks, we're going to have Representative Chuy Garcia joining us. And Chuy is, of course, a longtime ally of PDA's, and was a supporter of Bernie Sanders for president, and a congressperson from Illinois, and he's stepping down after this Congress. And we were really excited to have him on because at Progressive Central in Chicago, that PDA sponsored back in 2024, he gave a paper where he hinted at address a central component of addressing immigration is, of course, U.S. foreign policy in relationship to Latin America. And I am very interested in working with him in his final months in office to maybe introduce a framing to address exactly that. Because again, as you can see, we're in total crisis, and Trump is going in like a bull in a china shop, and is doing so around Western Hemisphere foreign policy with the United States, and we can assume is a terrible way, and is a terrible way. And it's going to get worse unless we can rise up, build a peace movement, and stall it. But again, with the bull in the china shop, does show that we need to really reformulate our relationship to Latin America. We always have needed to, because it's been totally oppressive across the history of my lifetime and before. And so how to do so, and I think Chewy has some great insights in that, and he'll be joining us next week. So we're at the top of the hour. Hold on, Jim, Lauren, and Marcial. And Mike Fox and the staff, do we know if Anna Lila has signed up and if she is in the waiting room? Or I believe Elon is Elon. I'm sorry, is his name, and he would be her campaign manager. Also is scheduled to show up at 5. And maybe what we'll also need to do in a minute, if they're not here, is I'll go and check my email, and maybe William Walter. We'll hear from William, and maybe William can step in and can guest host for a few minutes while I track down Anna Lilia Mejia. Of course, these candidates are very busy, but we are scheduled to have Anna Lilia Mejia join us at the top of the hour, and then Nida Allam, two fantastic progressive candidates with primaries coming up very soon. Anna Lilia is a special election to replace Mickey Sherrill and is supposed to be here at the top of the hour. But of course, I know her schedule is very difficult. We always know that is the case with candidates down the stretch, both officially endorsed by PDA. So you're going to learn about the campaigns and how you can support them. And Anna Lilia's special election primary is on February 5th, coming up very, very soon. So let's go to Jim. Please unmute. And I'm obviously doing two things at once here, but Jim, you have the floor.
So I hope it's not too far off, but in regarding Iran, 60 years ago, I was on an aircraft carrier. We docked in Yemen, imagine that. And the Shah of Iran actually flew aboard because there wasn't enough time to go to Iran. And they want us in position for the Tonkin Gulf incident. So it was that time period, 64. And I'd never been in the presence of somebody with such evil energy. It was overwhelming to me. I was only in my 20s. And but at that then later, when the Shah was overthrown, thankfully, there was a candidate named Bani Sadr. And I remember that he was kind of like a moderate, a little bit like Mossadegh. Was unclear how close to Mossadegh he was. And he came close from what I read and understood. And it seemed like the U.S. really wanted the Ayatollahs to win to teach the Iranians a lesson, just like they're trying to teach the Venezuelans a lesson. And I just wanted to remind people that often this U.S. policy has a hidden hand which makes things work in a way that doesn't help the working class anywhere. And that's an example of that.
Thank you so much. Yes, and it's funny. Someone said I think it was Hanya mentioned this idea that we go into countries and we promote democracy. In Iran in 1954, 53 rather, one of the first sort of foreign policy overthrow actions of the new global hegemon, the United States, following World War II, was in Iran. I don't think anybody was saying that this was for democracy when we imposed the Shah on the country. That was a talking point that maybe they picked up the following year in Guatemala as they started overthrowing countries, not just perverting elections around the world, which the CIA was doing right after the war as well. But yeah, thank you for that. Great comment. Lauren Steiner, old friend of mine. How you doing, Lauren? Please unmute. Lauren, please unmute.
Okay. Yes. So regarding what you were talking about Democrats and how they have to run or they're going to lose, I've been texting with Ro Khanna lately, and I will tell you that despite whatever he says publicly, he is considering running in 2028, and everything he does, he's positioning himself for that. And very specifically, taking on Gavin Newsom on the billionaire tax. And I am lauding him for that. But at the same time, I just, was compelled to criticize him for voting for that $3.3 billion for Israel. And he told me that he didn't see that was in there, which I find very hard to believe. Because yes, it was a 436-page bill, but that's what he has staff for. And I bet you, even with what AI can do, he probably could have had AI survey those 436 pages to see if there was any mention of Israel. Not only that,
Oh.
it restricted abortion and contraceptives, and he has to be um, more consistent. Also, I sent him something that Chris Murphy wrote. It was a screed against socialism, and it was so obnoxious.
Mm.
And I said he should really take that on. Um, and he didn't want to do it. Sometimes he
Yeah.
selectively ignores me, but
Well, of course, it's great to have you here, Lauren. Lauren's an old friend of mine from Southern California. Her days here, but you're in North Carolina, I believe now, and we are. I see that Nida, Jason's team's Nida has his hand up, so we'll go to Jason in a second and get an update on Nida Allam. But I mean, all your thoughts, and obviously with a candidate like Roe, former co-chair of the Bernie Sanders campaign. I worked very closely with Roe. And I remember one time I was with him at a conference and he didn't know a bill that we all wanted him to sign on to was introduced yet. And he was getting criticism for it. And then he signed on because I told him about it. And there can be a lot of stuff that can be lost. And he is hyper, it's very active on many fronts. And he's done some really heroic work. Obviously, there are times when you need to form coalitions across the aisle, as it were, even now. And
Did Alan freeze or did I freeze?
I think Alan did.
Yeah.
Okay.
Alan's crash. Mike Fox here. Let's go to Jason with his hand up. Jason, what you got for us, brother?
Jason has unmuted.
Can you hear me now? Hello? Test. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear
Jason,
you.
we hear
Okay,
you.
okay. Sorry. So sorry. Yeah, I don't really have anything right now from the campaign. I know she's supposed to hop on pretty soon, but I wanted to kind of comment as a civilian for a moment.
Go for it.
I saw that and I wanted to talk about Rokana. So I don't know if the folks who were on the call, if they follow Unusual Whales on Twitter or on any of the other socials. Unusual Whales is he's a stock dude, and he watches all the trades in Washington, and he watches portfolio growth by individuals in the House and in the Senate. Um, and just to kind of frame where we're going here, the S&P 500 grew by 16.8% in 2025. Ro Khanna's individual portfolio grew by 12.6%. Now, it doesn't beat the S&P 500, but boy, is it right around the corner. And trust me, when I saw this, I was heartbroken and I was so sad to see and I hate to see any of the politicians that I love on this list. But to see that, it was really concerning, and I definitely think all of us as we move forward into 2027, 2028, to keep an eye on these financial concerns with these folks.
All good, brother. And if folks on staff can keep their eyeballs peeled for Alan getting back in, I will just toss this over to my favorite part of the week, and that is the thank yous. I want to thank the following folks who have been kind enough to donate. We've got phone banker Mary Ellen double doing twice there, and phone banker Aaron double doing. Thank you, brother. And Charles and phone banker Dr. Sonnenborg double doing once again, and phone banker Erica double doing, and Becky and phone banker Betsy double doing, and TT and phone banker Beverly. And thank you so much, David, for your sustaining donation. We still have a goal that we got to hit, and we're substantially short on it right this second. So help us out here, gang. We have a goal of 20 new sustainers today. Thank you so much, David, for being one of those. And thank you, John and Patricia, phone banker Mary, Valerie, and Jody for your kind sustaining a donation, and Michael and Bob, our chapter head out in Missouri, and phone banker Jane, phone banker Dr. Sonborn again. He's triple dipping today. And phone banker Michael, phone banker Mary Ellen again, and phone banker Mary and Susan and Michael in Chicago, who starts us off every week. Thank you so much, Michael. We're still substantially short on goals for fundraising and for our volunteer shifts. We've got to get in the game, gang, for our endorsed candidates. So pedamerica.org/volunteer is where you toss in 1 hour. Our goal is 20 new phone bankers for this upcoming week. We're sitting at about 12 right now, so let's take this moment to dive headlong into those links, and let's do. Okay.
Mike,
Yes,
Jim. Ellen has joined us again.
Yay! Thank you. All right, let's get to Alan. Get you co-hosted, Alan, so that we can hear you. Bing, bang, and boom. You should be good to go, Alan.
Okay, and sorry, my internet broke off, and it wasn't. I had my cell phone not with me, so I couldn't join that way. And
we tap danced it, brother. It's beautiful. It's all
but
good.
we have Anna Lilia here with us, and we have Elon from her campaign as well. I just spoke to Elon, so they are with us. And I don't know what Jason said about an update on Nida Allam. I fell off as I was trying to call on him. As we get Anna Lilia ready to join us,
Yep, she should be co-hosted and able to unmute and turn her camera on.
I am on. I am on. Thank you. Thank you.
I got to introduce you a little bit because you just came on. You just proved my introduction.
What's the proof? Tell me.
The proof is that you have we were very honored to work with Afton Bain in Tennessee, and we were of the national progressive organizations. We were the one that really got behind that campaign and promoted it and supported her in the primary, and we played a huge role in boosting up the campaign, getting our people to make phone calls, and and Afton was very grateful to us. But Afton, I don't know if you had much contact with her, just is so ebullient, has such an incredible spirit that comes across, as do you. I mean, I've been watching video of you, and you're going to be, man, if we get you to win this primary, first of all, it's going to shake up New Jersey politics in a really real way if that happens.
Ooh, and they're so scared about it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, the victory that happened with the county line, it was like, wow, democracy is coming to New Jersey, and then this would really be a breakthrough. Yeah. And then, but then, watching the videos of you, and I said earlier in the call that, you're using a framing of economy for all, economy for everyone, right?
Yeah,
and
economy for everyone.
It is absolutely pitch perfect for the moment, but then your delivery of it on the video that you have, I just encourage everybody to watch it. But just like you right now, you come on and you just have incredible, you have a great, just a
Alan,
spirit of,
stop.
No, but this is why everybody out there, we got to motivate people here on this call because we're going to get PDA people to hit the phone tree. You got to understand, just like Afton. And look, Afton had a huge moment on the stage of history, but it was a huge lift to win, and she came close. But don't you see, folks, can't you see that the real kicker here is to get Anna Lilia into Congress? To have your voice join and have it maintained in the national. And also, as I said, also too, heretofore, you've been a little bit like myself. And I do not have the constitution or the kind of character to be, I think, as magnetic as both you and Afton are in just your presentation. But I'm a behind the scenes person generally. On these calls, with PDAers, I do this every week, but I don't even try to push myself into the media as much as, of course, my board wants me to. But you yourself have been the co-executive director of the Center for Popular Democracy, a great ally of PDA's over the year. And then you were the national political director of Bernie Sanders 2020, correct?
Yes. And then the Senator voluntold me into the transition team, and I joined the administration.
Right.
And when I did, to be frank, I was like, where is the most progressive arm of our federal government? The Department of Labor. And where can I have the most impact for working class people? And I figured out that the Women's Bureau, and I don't know if folks are familiar with the Women's Bureau, but It is within the Department of Labor, there is an entity that is charged to work on anything across all of government that impacts wage earning women. So where does an organizer go? Right to the Women's Bureau.
Yeah, well,
And again, voluntold by Bernie in many ways. I'm glad he did. We needed to inject progressives into, in fact, we need to inject progressives at every level of government. We can't
yeah.
seat any spot. That's
No,
how.
I agree absolutely, and I think we have majoritarian politics right now for the whole country. I mean, I think people really, when we can, get the message across
Yeah.
and reach them. And we'll talk about you. I want to hear your thoughts on the race and everything, and of course, I've
Yes.
let the people on the call know that this is a special election. I believe it's a Thursday primary, February 5th.
Bonkers, only in Jersey. In
Yeah.
Jersey, y'all, let me tell you, the talk about trying to have the fix.
Uh,
One, the special election, the timeline is just 10 weeks. Okay.
right.
So you
Right.
have to organize yourself within a 10-week time period. But the governor, the outgoing governor, in his wisdom,
Mhm.
uh, or sets the timeline so that the period in which we had to collect signatures to even get on the ballot was on Thanksgiving week.
Oh boy.
And then the same timeline then creates vote by mails hitting people's doors on
Mhm.
December 22nd.
Wow. There we
And
go.
then the election itself is placed on a Thursday in February. So talk about really wanting people to vote.
I mean, December 22nd has to be like the worst mail day possible, right? In the whole
Yes,
year, right?
yes,
It's just
yes,
it's that, you know.
yes.
No, that's crazy. But just so you know, there's a legacy of this kind of thing in Jersey. But again, hopefully people are wising up to it. And now tomorrow you have a huge event, correct?
Yeah, I have you may have heard of him, Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, yeah.
The senator jumped in support of my campaign on day one, and we're working together. I don't want to jump right in though, Alan. Do you? Because I will.
Oh no, you in a second. We'll do a second, but let's get the parameters set. So people right now listening understand this
Yeah.
is a special election to replace. It's a vacant seat because Mickey Sherrill won as governor.
Yes.
So it's New Jersey 11,
Yes.
and the 13 candidates were going to run out. Apparently 11 qualified. So
Yes.
people did scramble and make the deadline. That's 11 candidates. I see it as there sort of are three high-profile
Freeway.
established, yeah, and then you. And so there's the top four candidates, and the three are a former congressperson from another district. I don't know how that worked out, but of course he entered with high name recognition, Tom Malinowski.
Yeah, Tom Malinowski, whose claim to fame is that he joined Problem Solvers, and
All right.
I hate to say it, but
Yeah.
never missed a chance to water it down.
And only in New Jersey do you have somebody who holds the position of both lieutenant governor and secretary of state simultaneously.
Yes.
Now, imagine one can only imagine in New Jersey, and I don't know much about this person or their politics, but given the machine nature of New Jersey Democratic Party politics, that is going to be a machine politician who's both secretary of state and lieutenant governor.
Yes.
And then there's I believe, a relatively high profile county commissioner running too. Uh,
Yes, who's notably ran the outgoing governor's congressional gubernatorial race, and
uh,
has worked on multiple gubernatorial races, like essentially also a party
right.
machine.
Yeah, because that governor tried to get his partner, his wife, right, to also win
Yes,
election. So you
yes.
can see
Also
that
Jersey. Oh man.
the gears are turning. Yeah. And by the way, we have a great nucleus of young activists. Some of them are on the call right now in PDA, New Jersey. But and yes. So take it away. Let folks know why everybody in the country should be excited about Anna Leela Mejia's race for the U.S. House of Representatives in the special election, New Jersey 11th, February 5th. Go for it.
Well, first, I want to say hello and thank you. I want to say, hey, Dan, I see you. It's so nice to see friends, and just thank you for having me on, y'all. So I'm Ana Lilia. I am an organizer with 25 years experience. Much like you, Alan, I've always been behind the scenes, actually.
Yeah.
My philosophy has always been, how to dedicate my skills to trying to capture governing power for working class people.
Right.
And my, very early on was trained on understanding the different facets of governing power. Most of us traffic and understand the idea of power being organized people or organized money.
Hmm.
But when we talk about governing power, I personally hold, what I train leaders, and I've trained thousands of leaders across the country and hundreds in New Jersey, on the simple idea that governing power essentially has three faces.
Hmm.
First is the one we always see, the ability to decide. So who is the elected official, or who did you vote for in this race? Right? Like the ability to say yay or nay on a question. But that's just one facet. The second facet, the second face of governing power is the ability to set the agenda. The third is the ability to shape the narrative. And if
Hmm.
you are able to work with community to shape a particular narrative
Hmm.
that then makes a demand as to what is going to be discussed in that agenda, then
Hmm.
it makes it easier to
Hmm.
then push for a particular decision. So if you capture all three, if you are active in shaping a narrative and those demands shape the agenda, and then you have your people in office to yay or nay, or at least to inject, to uplift, then
Hmm.
we have a better shot at
Hmm.
shaping policy that not only wins in the moment, but has permanence. Because remember, it's one thing to pass a piece of legislation, but implementation and
Right.
sustaining it matters.
Right.
Like look at the
Right.
ACA, right?
Hmm.
So I decided to jump into this race. I kid you not, 7 weeks ago. So I see that Mikey Sherrill. Well, first of all, let me back up and say, as I said, I've been an organizer for 25 years. My day job right now is to run, I'm co-director for the what used to be known the Center for Popular Democracy. We now say Popular Democracy.
Right. Right.
But this is an organization that supports 50 organizations across the country to
Country. Right.
help essentially center. Our theory is the people on the margin are the margin of victory. So if
Mm.
we are able to bring in folks, those 90 million people that didn't vote, how to bring them in so that they
Hmm.
participate and we could vie for governing power, those three faces.
Right.
So for over a year, we have been working across the country because we believe that any old blue will not do.
Right.
Everyone is focused on flipping the house, but the caliber of who
Yeah.
we send matters. Because if we just send weak sauce to Congress, we're going to get weak sauce back. We're going to just nibble on the edges. Now,
Right.
granted, we can't win. Like I understand, we can't win every race with big, bold, progressive ideas. Most people aren't ready yet. Through organizing, we will get them there.
Hmm.
Sustained organizing, but I'm a realist. There are
Hmm.
places in which perhaps running on our big, bold ideas, won't deliver immediately.
Hmm.
However, in a district like NJ11,
Hmm.
that is
Hmm.
a +8 for
Hmm.
Democrats, where
Hmm.
we know that we have the statistical advantage plus. Like I said it, I'll say it multiple times. As an organizer, you think I don't talk to my neighbors? I've been living
Mm.
in my community for 13 years. So when I
Right.
talk to my neighbors and I hear that they're drowning in credit card debt and that they're pulling from their home equity, and then when tariff prices drive up the price of eggs, maybe they don't spiral, but they do sweat it a little. And
Hmm.
when tariffs or different economic conditions mean that they have less customers, if they have a small business, or if they're consultants, they lose a client. Again, they're not living paycheck to paycheck, but these economic conditions are impacting people. They're
Sure.
drowning in debt. They're feeling like they're falling behind. And so, again, out from outside, folks would say, "Oh, is it possible for us? Is that's just a New York phenomenon?" But no, American people are feeling the pressure across the board. And so when I speak of an economy for all and a
Hmm.
democracy for all,
Hmm.
it resonates with people. Like I said, I jumped in 7 weeks because I looked at my choices. I'm a voter in this
Hmm.
district, and I
Hmm.
was
Yeah.
completely dissatisfied. And then
Hmm.
understanding that nationally there is a push to send progressives to Congress who could work as a bloc, who are
Hmm.
going to be able to make a demand. Don't forget that it was only like 8 knuckleheads in the Republican Party that were able to yank that party to extremism. Remember
Hmm.
that. And
Hmm.
so why are we not organized? Remember, good, bad, or ugly, Barack Obama was an organizer, John Lewis was an organizer. When you
Sure.
send organizers to Congress, they use those skills.
Hmm. Oh, yeah.
And
Pramila Jayapal, who's done a great job with
Pramila
the Congressional.
Jayapal,
Right, great.
yes. I
Who's
mean,
endorsed you? Who's endorsed you?
yes,
Yes, yeah.
Pramila
Right.
Jayapal and
Mm-hmm.
Ayanna Presley and
Mm-hmm.
Maxwell Frost and
Mm-hmm.
Delia Ramirez. These are all folks who have
Great
endorsed me
people.
because they're like, my sister, if you
Mm-hmm.
come to Congress,
Mm-hmm.
we can work together. We could do what we know we must, which is vie for governing power. Maybe I won't be able to be the decider on all things, but you bet your bottom dollar that I'm vying for shaping that narrative and setting that agenda.
No, it's brilliant. And your analysis that you laid out there, I can tell you with the work that I do and the kind of work on legislation that we work through our 501c4, because we are involved in introducing legislation, proposing legislation to Congress people. We work with Pramila Jayapal, we work with other squad members in Ro Khanna we have bills in development with, and the climate emergency resolution, which won't be put forward this Congress because Trump exploits the emergency powers. But
Yes.
Luminar, we introduced with that. But the way to get the real big and important transformational elements on the structure of the economy, the way the government can work, and the lift that's involved, that you hit that right on the head. And we need people who understand that in Congress, and that we are going to face barriers. On the way, whatever it's to Medicare for all or to affordable child care, universal child care across the country, expanding the housing stock, all the things that we need to see really addressed for middle class households, equitable distribution of wealth across the society, all of
Yeah.
these things. We're going to need people who really have an understanding of that. And tell us again a little bit about NJ11. Where is it within the state, and that kind of thing.
Okay, so New Jersey's 11th congressional district covers essentially three different counties. For folks familiar, the biggest one is Essex County. It's the county that is, I guess, close just west, essentially, of Manhattan.
Mm-hmm.
It is a very much a commuter kind of
Mm-hmm.
town, right? In
Mm-hmm.
fact, I picked it because my husband and I, we drew a circle around where the kind of commute that we wanted to have. At the time, I was working in Newark, he was working in New York, and like many people, having public transportation into the city really mattered. The
Mm-hmm.
district includes places like what I call the People's Republic of Montclair, very
Mm-hmm.
progressive kind
Mm-hmm.
of town, and then it has other parts in Morris County. It's a little bit more purple. A little bit more purple, if not,
Mm-hmm.
there are chunks of red.
Mm-hmm.
But again, the economic conditions that people are feeling, I think, I learned this, frankly, during the Bernie race, how many
Mm-hmm.
people were just sick and tired of feeling unheard, and that was driving their choices, and why you had some folks who were supportive of Bernie and then flip, and even,
Mm-hmm.
at least that first time,
Sure,
uh,
sure.
flip to Donald Trump. Now, obviously, like problematic because the acceptance of the hate, misogyny, and xenophobia is problematic, but it still underlies a basic truth that many Americans are experiencing pain in isolation, right? They're
Mm-hmm.
falling behind. They can't make ends meet. They're drowning in debt. They don't hear themselves reflected, and they're just ripe for some kind of organizing. And I think that sadly, MAGA and Donald Trump have done a better job organizing the American people on like a response, or a subset of American people on a response, than the Democrats. And I think we need
Yeah.
to switch it.
Yeah, no, in everything, and I don't know if you saw the study done by the Center for Working Class Politics. They analyzed Trump's speeches in 2016, and the thing that he spoke about more than anything, slightly more than immigration, was the pain of the working class.
Yeah,
Doesn't do anything.
exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, and of course he's still rewarded to this day by, I think, a subset of people
Yes.
for being the bull in the china shop who breaks up a status
Yes.
quo that was unsatisfactory. And then the Democrats, the establishment Democrats, just come across like they want to go back to the status quo ante.
Exactly. Exactly. And just to return to what I'm seeing in this race and the opportunity overall.
Mm,
I believe that if we are able to, in this moment, in the first primary in 2026, because that's the other thing, in 18
yeah.
days, New Jersey is the first state that's going to
Mm,
determine the tone and tenor of these midterms. So if we win on with a bold progressive, we can make the argument that it's not just New York City, that it's not just these pockets, that we in fact can win on our ideas at this critical moment. And so I am so grateful that folks are down to help me in this endeavor, because what happens in Jersey is not staying in Jersey. And
Right.
so again, if we are able to say, no, these ideas resonate, we can win on bold thoughts. And we don't need to take corporate PAC dollars or ask law firms who actively lobby against us to bundle their money so that, like that's what my opponents are doing. And I could share that I have close to 7,000 donors have been able to fuel this campaign. Now, granted, I'm operating on 50 cents to their dollar. But the number of people, yesterday we had a massive snowstorm and we had like 50, 60 canvassers going out. Our folks are just fired up with the idea of we have to release ourselves from the stranglehold that big money plays on not only our economy, but our democracy.
So two things. First of all, I want to let you know that the person who's on immediately after you, supposedly right now, but we're going to be just about 3 minutes away, is Nida Allam. I don't know if you're familiar with Nida, but she is a progressive running in North Carolina. North Carolina follows Jersey. Is one of the 5 states. I think their March 4th is their primary. So, and so she's challenging yeah, no, fantastic. She's fantastic, and she came very close to winning the primary back 2 cycles ago. We endorsed then too, and we're endorsing Nida, and so she'll be on. So I know we don't have time to have you guys meet each other, but Nida Allam, meet Anna-Lilia Mejia, meet
Listen,
Nida
Alan,
Allam.
make sure to connect us. Let's exchange cell phone numbers, because sisters unite.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, and by the way, I mean, you're saying so many things that are so strong, and the fact that you work in the women's branch of the Labor Department. I mean, obviously there were a few things, Lita Khan and so on, Mina Khan, but there were things that were strong about the Biden administration, and the labor and the NLRB are missed. They're sorely missed, and obviously, that we have to get back to that. We have to rebuild the
Can I
labor.
tell you a story? A very, very, very short story.
Yeah.
I'll try to synopsis it. Okay. So when Bernie Sanders withdraws from the presidential race,
right,
very wisely, he went to the president-elect and said, I want to be able to support you. Obviously, I want to beat Donald Trump, but I need to be able to speak to my people with authenticity. So let's take the summer. I spent my whole COVID summer doing this. Let's spend some time identifying, working together with your leadership, with some of my leadership, to identify where are the policy overlap, where the quote unquote left and the quote unquote center had some overlap on policy ideas. We spent weeks going through on the economy, on immigration, on education, on healthcare. I'm forgetting the other two, on criminal justice. And as we figured out where there was excitement, enthusiasm across, that spectrum of the party, we were able to pull these things out, and many of those things hardwire into the administration as ARPA, IJA, like the alphabet soup of Build Back Better. So that is an example of how we built leverage to be able to, because we shaped the narrative, we were able to set the agenda. And even though we weren't the deciders, we were able to move smart policy forward. We need to be organized and strategic in that way in all of our efforts. Right now, in my campaign, yesterday I hosted a town hall where I had part of a discussion about my campaign, and then I did an anti-ice training. And we had like 150 people who were like, oh my God, I can't believe that this is the first time I've had, forget a member of Congress, a candidate think of doing that. Well, that's how organizers think. That's how we can win.
Look, everybody on the call, I guess should speak to the camera. Everybody on the call right now, folks, really, Nita's going to be on in a second, and March 4th is that primary, and let's get on the phones and support Nita's campaign, because that's getting in the home stretch. But certainly between now and Thursday, election on Thursday, February 5th, let's all get behind Anna-Lilia. Let's Now, there's a young gentleman here. Unfortunately, I don't have time to introduce you. Tyler Rivera actually doesn't live in state right now, but he helps guide our New Jersey work. And Catherine Hunt, our state coordinator. Let's all get behind this campaign. Let's get on the phone. Let's get on the campaign call on Thursday with Mike Fox, and let's mobilize for this because we saw one of the most important and transformational electoral victories in a city not far from New Jersey recently, with a
Yeah,
mayor
Jersey
getting
City. Yeah.
there. I know with the mayor getting elected in New York,
Oh,
and
yes.
yeah, no, we can follow that up. Your victory on February 5th. And by the way, I don't know. This is, of course, to my ears. I caught this. Zohran Mamdani would say consistently that what he was doing was a template for the Democratic Party. So
Yes.
let's follow through on
Yeah,
this
let's
template
do it.
because
Let's
the
do it.
people in New Jersey 11th are not going to get represented in their interests by either of the three establishment Democrats. Like they're going to have their interests not just represented but championed by Anna Mejia. You have a beautiful first name, and
My mother made it up.
yeah.
I
No, but it's
can't
gorgeous,
take
actually.
credit for it, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, I know Annalitas and Adelitas and stuff, and so I messed it up. I apologize. But
No, don't worry.
fantastic candidate. And it's great for you to join us. Now, we're going to have splits we can make with Act Blue for people to donate
Yes.
to and Olivia's campaign, and we'll get those out nationally in the next couple of days,
Yes.
unless somebody has them ready to go into the chat right now, and Mike Fox can drop them.
May I make an ask? I'm an
Yeah,
organizer.
oh yeah, you
I
can.
always
Yes,
have an
yes.
ask.
Here for
Okay.
that, of course. Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
it's almost like a three-part ask. Obviously, you're on this call. Please, please stay on. Make phone calls. We can win this. I am at the 60% mark of my voter ID goals. For folks who run fields, you know that that is critical and important to hit GOTV, having exceeded your identification goals. So you would be helping us make sure that our GOTV plan, early voting starts in New Jersey on January 29th. So having these folks is critical and important. So everything that you're able to do today, that's ask number one. Please do. Ask number two is if you can, please donate to our campaign. I'm not taking corporate PAC money. I'm not taking APAC money. I'm not taking fossil fuel money. I'm literally fueled by regular people across America who have met me over the course of those 25 years of organizing, who know, just like Alan does, I really am the real deal because I believe that
Oh, yeah.
we owe our best to each other and that organizing is how we get out of all messes. The third ask, though, is that I want you to become an organizer, but I believe in the power of distributive organizing. And so if you make a $25, even a $50 donation, I'm going to ask you to send the link to like 10 people and say, I usually don't ask you for this. You don't even know what I don't think you've even been to New Jersey. However, it's the first race that sets the tone for our midterms. And then I'm going to ask you to do the same for my sister from another mister who's right, because distributive organizing can help us essentially multiply ourselves, right? That exponential reach. Because if 10 people here are moved to contribute and those 10 people talk to 10 people each, think about the power in that. Let's just move it on. That's how we're going to have to reclaim our entire country, is just asking others once we've convinced them to please almost capture, indoctrinate, move. I don't want to say infect, but just move our community towards what we need. It's very clear. We can do it.
Just,
So thank you.
just like Zoran's victory in New York City, when we have a victory on February 5th with Anna Lilia's campaign, that is going to be do as much for salvaging the project of a democratic society in this territory and this part of the world, which we need to against fascism. So more power to you. Everything that you just said, and we're going to rock this between now and February 5th. Get you elected in this primary. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm going to jump because I'm making my own calls.
You got it. Way to go. Thank you so much. And Alila Mejia, and check her out online, and we'll be getting emails out about her campaign. Sign up for the campaign call. And now, Nida Allam,
Nida,
you guys can see each other.
Nida, good luck to you, my sister. I'm so proud of you.
Yes, get that first W for us.
Oh yes,
I'm
wow.
on it. I'm on it. I'm on it, my sister. I'm on it. All right.
Well, take
I
care.
know.
Thank you. Great. And so from Emily Mejia to Nida Allam. Nida Allam, I believe you still serve on what is it, the I'm getting the name of the
The
county wrong. You're on
Durham
the county
County Board
commission.
of Commissioners.
Durham County Board of Commissioners, and people can remember we endorsed Nita in her race 2 cycles ago, right, in 2022, when it was an open seat, and it was a close enough election. I remember with my allies and friends, we were all looking at the map and seeing where the votes were coming in from, and can maybe Nita get votes over here or over there. But she lost a closely fought primary battle to the woman who is the incumbent, and a woman who is an incumbent receiving about as much money from APAC as a candidate could. And of course, we at PDA are vowed to not supporting candidates that take money from APAC. And by the way, I don't know if you remember this. I'm sure you do. We also were very much supportive of Erica Smith's race in that primary, and nobody across the board was as so outrageously misrepresented when the APEC tranche money came in that a judge actually ruled that the ads had to be pulled from the airwaves in her district, but the damage was done, and a very conservative Democrat won that district. So you're running again. And yeah, Representative, I just get her name wrong. I should have my notes in front of me. Fonseca, is that right? Am I getting that
No,
wrong? No.
Valerie Fushi.
Oh, okay, right. And she's two-term congressperson. And how's the race going? What does it look like? And why have you decided to step up and run again against the incumbent?
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Alan and Progressive Democrats of America, for having me on and just all the ways that you guys have been supportive. The race is going really well
Mhm.
because we launched December 11th, and within 20 days, we were only in the race for Q4 for 20 days. We raised over $335,000 from grassroots contributions. That really goes to show the momentum of progressive energy that we're building, not just in North Carolina, but across the country, that people are fired up and they're looking for their representatives who are actually going to step up and serve working families. And,
Mm.
obviously, I ran for this seat, as you mentioned, in 2022. We had $4 million spent against us. It was the most expensive primary, Democrat or Republican, in North Carolina's history. And
Wow.
to still come within 9 points, even though they outspent us on TV 10-1, it shows that our message resonated more with voters. Voters wanted a progressive champion, but it's just, and they had to spend so much money because their message and their candidate was harder to sell to voters. So they had to spend more. But this time around, now when Trump is back in office and we see families struggling every single day with the cost of living rising, with ICE and CBP coming into our communities and tearing apart families, this district was hit with the highest number of federal funding cuts from DOJ, more than any congressional district in the country.
Wow.
And there's been silence from our representative. And people are like, enough is enough. This is the safest blue seat in North Carolina, if not the South. Why do we not have a fighter? There's
Yeah,
literally
actually,
nothing to lose.
what Nita says is correct. My understanding about your district is it is the way that they gerrymandered states, and of course North Carolina is a state which has grown in size over recent decades. It's very populous now, large state, and the way they do it is by packing in Democratic districts. And I believe it was considered at least last 10-year cycle, it was referred to as like the most compacted, exaggerated seat in that regard. So it's a very, very Democratic district. And yeah, no, with your Representative Fouché, and I joke when I'm up on Capitol Hill that I don't even really know much about any of the Republicans because I do so little work. And one of the reasons I don't know her very well, or I got her name wrong, was that not a lot of accomplishment there. It's been a pretty silent contribution to the House, and this is the district, folks, that has does it contain both University of North Carolina and Duke are there, and
There's 6 universities and colleges in this
right.
district. There's North Carolina Central University, which is a HBCU, UNC Chapel Hill, Duke, and then we
Mm.
have 3 community colleges all in the district. It's the youngest district in North Carolina where the average age is 35.
Yeah, it's also, yeah, I think it's internationally understood to be one of the, great concentrations of academic
Yeah.
intellectual power, which, by the way, is under siege from the Trump administration, obviously, and that probably goes to why the Doge firings occurred so concentrated. But we can of course have a critique of the American left and why is it so concentrated among university and college students, but that is a fact. And by the way, I don't think that's something to dismiss. I think we see with people who get degrees, they struggle economically. and they also, probably have a lot of insight socially to understand the sort of institutional structures that are keeping them in such economic precarity. And to have someone who's just not a really vibrant Democrat representing the district, as opposed to Nida, I think we really see something that we can win this election. We can really resonate with people. So March 4th is the primary,
March
and
3rd.
March 3rd. Oh, there. Sorry about that. But that's right. I should know that because there's 28 days in December, and if you heard with Anna Lilia on this February 5th thing, Jersey's so crazy they have it now Thursday primary, to throw people off. So yeah, 26 days after that. Now it's the day that they're the first primaries in the country, right? Because Anna Lilia's is a special election. And so, just like Anna Lilia was saying, this is an opportunity to really have a great progressive victory in Central North Carolina. And tell us not just about your sense of the race, but if you can clarify for us where the things stand in North Carolina. Are all the districts set?
Yep.
What are the shenanigans that the GOP are pulling in terms of allowing democracy to occur in the state? How's all that looking right now?
Yeah, so we're not in redistricting right now.
Mm.
They did have a redraw of the maps a little bit earlier last year, which it didn't impact North Carolina's fourth district, but they did impact the rest of the state. Where now, district you mentioned, District 1, where Don Davis is serving, that ran
Right.
against Erica Smith last time, they made his district more red.
Right.
So we're likely to lose that Democratic seat. But overall, with this race, like what we're seeing is a lot of people, because we had redistricting that impacted this race 2 years ago. And
Mm.
so from the map that we had in 2022 to now, it's basically a new district. It's not the same map. 91% of my opponent's margin of victory came from the 4 counties that got cut from this district.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, Person County, Alamance, and Granville, and then Caswell County, they made up 7,700 of the 8,000 votes she won by. And
Mm.
now they replaced those 4 counties with Western Wake County, which, if you're familiar with North Carolina, is where we have the highest density of our immigrant voting population, especially South Asian and Asian American voters. And again, we have all these young people. And because last time we ran in 22, Republicans were doing their redistricting shenanigans where our primary was supposed to be March, but
Mm.
because we were battling the courts, our primary day kept getting pushed back to April, and then ended up being in May.
Mm.
And all of those college students were gone home for
Right.
summer.
Oh, yeah.
But
God,
this
I
time
remember that.
around, they
Yeah.
are actually going to be on
Right.
campus. And
Right.
so we've started Students for NIDA on all the college campuses. We've started High Schoolers for NIDA, where the high schoolers have actually been phone banking voters under the age of 21 to tell them to get out and vote. And we're going to be doing marches to the polls from all the college campuses because each campus has an early voting location on it. And
Wow.
North Carolina, as much as we struggle with our Republican legislature, we have one-stop early voting that if you go to early vote, you can register the same day at your dorm, at your apartment, and be able to vote. And those are votes that my opponent and the Democratic establishment just take for granted and don't even
Mm.
try to do outreach to. But we've already had campus events of like mini rallies and like tabling. But
Mm.
now the Young Democrats on each campus chapter is planning marches with us, where
Awesome.
we're going to go like each day, like a different day of the week for each campus, just getting as many students to go out and vote.
By the way, I've built a great relationship with the current president of the College Democrats, who's a student out at UC San Diego La Jolla. Unfortunately, his term ends at the end of January, but I think I'm going to reach out to him right now. After this, because he'll be hugely supportive. His name's Sanjay. Oh, I always get his last name wrong, but a fantastic guy. And right here in La Jolla, I'm in Los Angeles, and I'll definitely nudge him and yeah, definitely try to see what we can do to help support in that way. I should let you know, by the way, since 4 years ago, we had a great core of PDAers, sort of an old guard. It was very Charlotte concentrated. I mean, people like Mayor Jennifer Roberts was a part of it, former Assistant Secretary of State Robert Wilson. And now we have a great new leader, Sam Brewer is on the call. And it's interesting your state because North Carolina became the second state, and this is a big PDA initiative, to pass a resolution calling for big money to not be in primaries, right? So that was great. And also a great resolution on Gaza that we were very happy to see this, and PDA was very involved in that. So we have infrastructure we're going to really apply to this. And so how do things feel right now in the district around the crises that Trump has imposed, the shutdown of campus, that solidarity demonstrations. I mean, how does the Trump 2.0 crises resonate in the district, and is there a strong sense that people need new leadership from the Democrats in terms of addressing
Oh,
this adequately?
absolutely. Because I mean, even me as like a current county commissioner, I'm seeing the impacts at the local level of how I'm able to effectively govern because of Trump's federal funding cuts. Like we had cuts to our Dine program, which provided families with free meals and groceries. And that was money that we lost that people's like lives depended on. So we had to fill in that gap because obviously we're not going to let residents go without food. So we
Mhm.
pulled in $250,000 from our fund balance to keep that program going. But those are things that like we plug in one hole and then Trump is causing another leak here. And to not have any proactive fight going up against him, to just allow him to keep attacking our most vulnerable neighbors again and again and again, because it's not a matter of if he's going to attack working families, if he's going to attack our immigrant communities, it's when. So we need elected leaders at every level of office who are willing to step up and put themselves on the line. Like when we had ICE and CBP come here in October and November, we knew that they were going to be coming to North Carolina because we saw what was happening in Chicago. And so I had been working with local organizations like Siembra, North Carolina, to lead Know Your Rights trainings, to get people trained and prepared to be ICE and CBP verification volunteers, and got myself trained that when they were here, I was actually out on ICE watch, that when we got a notification that there was a potential sighting, I was driving around town with a few other local elected officials and community members, and I pulled up behind a beauty shop, and we found ICE was loading up three men into the back of their truck. And I asked them, like, I got out of my car, my minivan, I jumped out, and I was like, "Where's your warrant?" They refused to show any warrant, even though they went in and took these men from their job. These men did not speak English, and we had an individual there who was able to translate to try to get their names. But these are just lawless agents that are running amok, breaking North Carolina law that says you are not allowed to be walking around with masks unless they're
Right.
for medical reasons. But these federal agents are just allowed to break every rule. And so when we knew this was going to happen, why were our communities not better prepared by our federal representatives?
Right.
Because the most we got out of our representative was a tweet. And a tweet is not going to reunite those families back with the three men who were kidnapped from our backyard. A tweet is not going to help assuage the fear of all the hundreds of students that stayed home from school for weeks after because their parents were too scared to drive them to school because they were worried about being picked up in the school pickup line. The
Mhm.
hundreds of families that weren't going to the grocery store, that we were organizing food pantry drop-offs and deliveries of groceries because people were too scared to go to the grocery store because they would get picked up by ICE.
Your opponent, the incumbent, um, has received a ton of money from AIPAC, and I remember because we supported Erica's campaign back 4 years ago. I mean, of course, Erica, who was a great progressive, but didn't have a particularly pronounced set of public statements on Israel Palestine. It's like, why is this happening? And why it was happening is because Don Davis had been on like two APEC paid trips. He was they build a bench up
Mhm.
of people to come in and then just parrot the lines around Israel once they get into higher office. My understanding is your opponent is that sort of the model that was her background as well, like Davis's? I mean, how come she's such a Israel hawk?
So actually, when I ran in 22, there was about 6 or 7 of us total. And APAC had actually, when they started hearing rumblings that I was going to be jumping in the race, they
Right.
started reaching out to all of the other candidates
Right. Okay. Right.
to
Right.
see essentially who was going to be the
Who would
one
take?
that
Right. Right.
they could put up against me, who'd have the strongest fight against me. And they ended up landing on Valerie.
Wow.
And they ended up spending $4 million or 3 million for her, and then also the crypto billionaire Sam Bankman-Fried, who's now in jail for fraud, spent an additional $1 million. And now my opponent, when she started hearing inklings that I may be running again, she announced in September of 25 that she would no longer take support from AIPAC.
Mm.
And I'm like, I'm glad the tide is turning, that candidates and elected leaders are seeing how toxic it is
Mm.
to be associated with genocide, but also she still has not called it a genocide. She still refuses to say that she won't take any corporate PAC or right-wing special interest money
Mm-hmm.
because we know that AIPAC is part of the problem, but it's not the entire problem.
Yeah, and also before they created the United Democracy Project, they would not channel money. It wouldn't come directly. They'd bundle it, and there's ways of just getting around it. And this, by the way, you bring up the crypto thing. There was a real tacit and obvious uh, sort of a coordination between some of those crypto money and the APEC and UDP money. It was coming into the same candidates, and I think that so
Yeah.
people. That's probably why she's not agreeing to not take the big money because they'll get money too or to defeat you.
Yeah.
Because
And
that's
also,
different.
like, you have to look at, is it actually happening because of a change in your policy platform, or is it happening because it's now the politically expedient thing to do? Because even in the midst of the genocide in 2024, she was taking, when we are all well aware of, by 2024, everyone knows what's happening in Gaza. Like, there's no excuse for dismissing any of the actions of Israel. She flew there and took pictures with Netanyahu.
Right. Wow.
And it's like, if you're willing to do that and send US taxpayer dollars to fund the killing of innocent Palestinians, create the largest population of child amputees. And I'm a mother. I have a 3-year-old and a 1.5-year-old, and my first daughter was an emergency C-section.
Mhm.
And I'm thinking about the women in Gaza who are going into labor having C-sections without any anesthesia, with bombs going off outside their tents. How is that? How do we as humans allow that to happen? How do we turn a blind eye?
And it's, for people who are listening right now, and I just, for some reason, I can't remember on last week's call, I gave a little like almost advertisement for Democracy Now! And I encourage everybody, if you can, wake up and listen to the first 15 minutes of that show every 5 days a week, because the headlines are the best headline package you're going to get in American media, I think. And this is ongoing. There's a ceasefire and everybody turns their eyes away from it, but they're continuing to have kill people in Gaza, and the destruction is, and also, if there is now a question of how it's going to be rebuilt, I mean, basically, it looks like Israel is going to claim half the territory or dominate half the territory, and I don't think that's going to create a peace, and the thing is going to continue going on. Just the word ceasefire gets thrown out, and everybody turns their attention away. It's an incredibly fraught situation, terrible, unlike anything I think the world has ever seen. I don't, people, have to realize the firebombing of Tokyo was not visible to people on their phones, and to have, and this is part of what we're dealing with now with what happened with Renee Good in Minnesota, and the Trump administration instantly getting into the press and just telling people what you're seeing with your eyes and witnessing is not true. And and a lot of people in the Democrats and in the liberal media, how can they lie? How can they lie? It's so offensive. It's like, no, this is empowering to them that they can change the discourse, that they can lie. They are Big Brother in 1984, and the Big Brother government felt it was empowered because it was empowered. And that's what we have with Trump right now, and that's what we have with American policy with Israel and
Yeah.
Gaza.
Well,
So
and
it,
it's
it
not just with Gaza. I mean, if you even look at the West Bank
right,
continues to be ignored.
right,
And you look
yeah,
at even with Aisha Nouri Ghazi, the US citizen who was sniped and murdered in the West Bank for just standing and documenting and watching peaceful protesters. And
right.
her husband is actually someone who has grown up in this North Carolina's 4th Congressional District. He's one of my husband's close friends, was a groomsman at our wedding. And like now he, at the young age of 31 years old, is mourning his wife, who was
Mhm.
murdered by a foreign military with weapons that may have been funded by the United States government.
And what's your sense in the district, and not just in the college campuses, but everywhere, with the obviously this has been, and it's horrible. It's a horrible fact of American life that campus demonstrations have been effectively silenced. I mean, really, from like whatever 1964 in Berkeley and the free speech movement through to Trump 2.0, demonstrations on college campuses were allowed, and now they're not. But what's the sense in the district right now of of an undercurrent of social solidarity among people, recognizing we're in a crisis and we need a change, and we need a change that is presented by progressives right now within American society. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So in North Carolina, with UNC Chapel Hill being in the district, but the UNC public education system is actually run by the state. And the
Right.
state legislature is appointing the members to the board and
Oh,
controlling who the board is of the system. And they've just appointed, one of their buddies to be the president of the UNC Chapel Hill system. And that was who came in and tore down all of the encampments on campus at Chapel Hill during the protests and have put up a fence around the quad area where students are building. And erecting these fences where it should be a common space, it's a public university for free speech,
right.
for freedom to assemble, but these students are being silenced because they know how powerful student voices are.
Mm.
Every major movement in this country has been led by students and has been led by young people. And then you even see like our private universities, like Duke University, actually has rules in place that you cannot protest or table or have a permit unless you are a registered student organization and you have to have applied for a permit from the university. I believe it's like a month in advance.
Hmm.
And if you haven't applied for it, oh, and also if even if you have applied for it, the university has discretion whether they approve it or not.
Mm. That's just crazy. I mean, uh, um, obviously, look, what we do need to is we need, you know, Ro Khanna and I talk a lot, and he was on an interview, and I stole a talking point from him because I saw him on an interview with the Nation, and he made a point, and now I emphasize it, that a lot of if you actually look around the world in the last 250 years of history all across the world, but in many countries, with the kind of structures of government that the United States has had in the last 250 years, the opportunity for not just left and progressive victories, but such powerful left progressive victories, you have a redistribution of social power, they follow crises. They follow wars and they follow crises. Well, we have our crisis right now. And I think, again, electing someone like yourself to Congress right now in 2026 will, I think, really lay a foundation for what we need to do when we win the presidency in 2028, hopefully with a progressive Democratic candidate, and we have control of both houses of Congress. We can start to have fewer fascist judges, win more legislatures across the country. But those politics have to make sure that all of these structures that are being destroyed now are not only put in place, but put in place stronger. And folks, so everybody, again, I joked around with Alilia before, like looking straight in the camera. This is a race we have to get behind, folks. So PDA, we're gonna be channeling people in to make phone calls across the country for your campaign. Again, March 3rd coming up, and it's just an honor to work with you. And it'll be delightful to work with you when you're in Congress and starting in January of 2027. And final word from yourself, and we'll be getting out a national email with a donation link where people can donate, and maybe there are people in the staff, if that's already ready, the split link is already put it in the chat. There it is. Donate now to support Nida's campaign, and then remember we're going to be calling in to. I've spent very little time in the part of North Carolina where you live, but it's one of the most beautiful places in the country. So we're going to be putting phone calls into people who are privileged to live there and privileged to have an opportunity to vote for Nida Allam on March 3rd. Final thoughts, Nida, as we wrap.
Thank you so much again, Alan and Progressive Democrats of America, for your endorsement and support. And this grassroots momentum and this phone banking is going to make the difference because my opponent is not knocking a single door. She's not making a single phone call because she's expecting some sort of corporate special interest to come in and buy this race for her again. And election day is March 3rd. That's when we'll know the results, but early voting starts February 12th. And actually, people have already voting because you could have requested your mail-in ballot. So folks are already receiving their mail-in ballot and voting. So the earlier and more you can make calls, the better, because this race is going to be about name ID. That area that I mentioned in Western Wake County, both Valerie and I are relatively at the same name recognition, name ID in that area because just been added for her too. She's never been on a primary ballot for them. Durham County that I represent right now is the largest county in the district. So I have represent over 340,000 people already in the district. So
What are the like socioeconomic demographics of the new part of the district?
it's all of this district is like one of the most highly educated, higher wealth districts of North Carolina, but also again, because of those Doge cuts, we're seeing the highest number of people losing their jobs. These are people who are researchers, professors, working at USAID in RTP that are now like maybe had earning $80,000 plus that are just lost their jobs, have still not been able to find any other employment. We had a small round table with laid off federal employees who've been without a job for nearly a year now.
And by the way, it's also great to have right in the center of the state that we would have a great progressive champion holding one of the, obviously most prestigious offices in any state, a member of the U.S. House of Representatives. And Nida Allam, thank you so much for stepping up and running again. And we'll be with you. And we're going to win this thing on March 3rd. So thank you so much. And everybody, round of applause for Nida Allam. Thank you. Thank you. And everybody, folks. So I'm Mike Fox and everybody. We're going to go to family time in a second, but we've just had these two unbelievably great candidates on who I think, again, wow, we obviously had the squad, arrive on the stage of American national politics in 2018. But as you can see, we can have a really, not just for the Democratic Party defeating the Republicans, but a transformative set of primaries for progressives. And it's a great opportunity for everything that PDA has always been building up to do. And so I want to thank our guests from today. I want to go back and, of course, thank Hanya Jodat from the beginning of the call. And both thanks, by the way, to Tyler and Sam who came on the call. And I actually wanted to sort of bring their voices in, but obviously the schedule got a little mixed up because when we're dealing with very, very busy people who are candidates for the House on a Sunday afternoon, they're going to be out there doing things. But Anna Lilia Nahia, fantastic candidate. That election is primary is February 5th. Super important, big event with Bernie Sanders. If you're anywhere near the district tomorrow, check that out. I'm sure you can get the information from Anna Lilia's campaign social feeds, social media feeds, and her campaign site. And Bernie Sanders' site probably announces it as well. And then, of course, thanks to Nida Allam. Thank her so much for stepping up again and running. Very, very important race in the center of North Carolina. And we'll be supporting both candidates going forward. As for Marcielle, Heidi, and Neil, I'm going to toss to Mike Fox as we put a bow and ribbon on this. I've been about 2 hours and 5 minutes straight in front of this camera. I'm going to go and grab a bite to eat and a drink. But stick with us. We're in family time, folks. And Mike Fox, take it away. Thank you.